Woveo's mission is centered around financial security, mainly around the cost of credit. In Canada, 9 million people are non-prime consumers. And what that means is you have credit scores under 700. And these are typically newcomers coming to Canada, students who don't have any credit history. And the biggest problem around those individuals is their cost of borrowing, right? Every time that they need to access credit, they're really charged excessive fees. It's a harsh reality whereby those with less have to pay more.
Hello. Welcome to today's episode of the Community Financial Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Justina Kanza. And as you know, every week we bring you exciting episodes on all things community economic development and how our company Woveo is digitizing and mobilizing data to bridge the gap that's left by financial traditional institutions. And today I am here with our founding team, the Woveo founding team, Jonah, Sergio, Maryheth, and James. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Amazing. Let's jump right into it. I usually read a bio at this point, but there's like 4 of you guys. So I also don't have much of a voice today. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, starting with Jonah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what inspired you to join the founding team for Woveo.
Yeah, my name is Jonah Chininga, co-founder and CEO of Woveo. Yeah, I've been there since day one. 4 years ago when we went on a mission to be able to reimagine financial security for underserved Canadians. And originally I'm from Zimbabwe, so I was born in Zambia, raised in Zimbabwe, and I grew up in an environment whereby we had a financial crisis. It was hyperinflation. So I've experienced firsthand the ability of not having access to credit as an enabler to be able to have access to the most things that other people take advantage, like in terms of like going access to education, access to starting a business. And coming to Canada, it was the same experience in terms of being able to access those services, but then mainly for emergencies as an international student. So looking at that journey, I thought there could be other ways that we could be able to solve this problem. And that was the inspiration.
Amazing. That's a great story. I'm also from Zambia for our audience, so we have that in common. How about you, Sergio?
Thanks, Justina. So my name is Sergio. I'm from Colombia. I've been in tech for 15 years. I've been working on crypto. I've been working on AR and VR. Actually, that's the way we came to Canada. We had a small company in Colombia, and we do AR, VR, and we came here, and then we met the team. But there is one more thing that I was thinking before, and it's how I actually get passionate about joining Woveo. And it's an experience that I had with a bank. So I arrived to Canada, and I needed to pay my rent, I think it was. So I had some cryptocurrency on my power. I decided to sell some of it, but the bank took actually not some of it, but all the money that I had on the account, just because one transaction that it was cryptocurrency involvement. They actually called my landlord and they said, do you really know this person? How long has he been living with you? So it was not only the money, it was also some kind of reputation. So not actually, they banned me from the bank. They told me, you cannot open a bank account with us, like never. I'm in some kind of blacklist, I guess. I actually cannot close the account because I have still money. They don't want to give me that money, so I'm still interested. Anyway, so I think it was 2 weeks later that Jonah called me and he said, well, we need the tech side of it. And I felt very related with the story and then the way we want to change the banking. So yeah, that's I'm sorry if I extended a bit longer, but that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Sergio. Maryheth.
Okay, my name is Maryheth. From Colombia, and I've been with Woveo not since the day one. I've been around, but I've been like from marketing, design, product, now and COO. It's been a long journey. My background is actually filmmaking. So that was the thing that I was doing back in my country. And when I landed in Canada, everything starts again. It was like in a completely new life, trying to build things, trying to get a credit card, trying to build my credit score. Everything was like starting again. And in that process, I really felt that connection with new things of building paths and lives. So this idea behind Woveo is something that we share even when we are from different backgrounds. So that resonated with me, with my family, with my grandmom, with my parents. So for me, it was exciting to hear what we had been doing for decades in my country was the same in different parts of Africa, Asia, everywhere. So that was what resonated with me, and I'm happy because I'm here. Here I can blend community background, arts, and so many things in a space that usually is really traditional, and it's all about money and rules. So we are setting up our own rules.
Amazing, beautiful, beautiful. I have a quick question before I move on to James. What do you call the rotating savings circles in Colombia?
Oh, actually, we have a couple of names. That will be cadenas. There is chains. So it's a chain of people helping each other.
Amazing.
And there is another one. There is vacas. There is cows. It's a curious one, but it's really common as well. So that we have two names for that.
I don't know what other country, but someone said they call it cows in a different African country as well, just a different word. Yeah, I'll be curious to remember what that is, but that's pretty interesting. Amazing. Yeah. How about you, James?
No, see, this is why I love like the Woveo side. There's so many ways for it to be interpreted, but the same thing. But James Mohato, originally from Kenya and co-founder at Woveo, I focus on customer success or community success and growth, really aiming to serve communities and utilize Woveo to reach their financial goals and outcomes, but also really grow and economically develop the communities as well.
Amazing, beautiful.
Like for background, it'd be from born and raised in Kenya and seeing the impact or the tangible impact that economic access to credit can have at a grassroots level, especially in rural and developing areas, has really was a big motivation behind Woveo, and couldn't be more proud of a team to work with to make this happen.
Absolutely. So how did you guys decide that this was the team to make it happen? How did you meet? How did you come together and decide we're going to do this, and like share stories of how it's done in the different parts of the world that you're from?
What's the start?
I think there was no plan to like, we want to start a business. I think since day one, we have always been mission driven. So I think it was the mission driven and the shared problem and shared realities that brought us all together. So in Canada, we all started from Prince Edward Island, a small province. Myself and James came here as international students. Maryheth and Sergio came here under the startup visa program. So we're just all immigrants, but then we all had shared experiences. And it was just, how can we be able to solve this problem? And then after recognizing the problem, it was, we need an A-class team to be able to get started. And what different skill sets do we need to be able to build this company? Because the key thing that we needed to be able to leverage to actually solve the problem was technology. Because you can actually solve it on a cost, convenience perspective. And how can we get someone with a technology background, business background? And that's how we all came together. And I think one catalyst was the Startup Zone, which was a business incubator in PI with just ambitious founders. And at that stage, it was also that immigrant story whereby the actual system couldn't get access to the jobs that we wanted. So at the end of the day, just how can I just do something, build something myself? Because as an international student, say that you worked at a call center, and then some people would come, like they have technology background, but then they're working as construction workers. So that's just kind of like those stories that just inspired us to be able to come together and solve this problem.
That's beautiful. And what is the problem? What is the problem that you're solving for? What mission is Woveo on?
So Woveo's mission is centered around financial security and expanding financial access, mainly around the cost of credit. So to give like a broad picture on the problem is, in Canada, 9 million people are considered to be non-prime consumers. And what that means is you have credit scores under 700. And these are typically newcomers coming to Canada, students who don't have any credit history. And the biggest problem around those individuals is their cost of borrowing, right? Every time that they need to access credit, they're really charged excessive fees, right? Because they tend to be considered high credit risk. And when you look at that, it's a harsh reality whereby those with less have to pay more, So now those people are paying between 25% to 47% interest fees. But how much are they making? Right? So you now realize like people end up being in this debt trap whereby they're not actually being able to build better financial lives, to build better capacity and the ability to be able to achieve their dreams. And then to give context as well on how much they're paying, I think in 2021, there's 9 million individuals with low credit scores paid a staggering $62 billion.
It's crazy.
And that's money that's being taken out of their pocket. That's money that's being taken out of their savings. So when you look at that, there's no way out. How can you actually be able to enable people to use more of their money and savings to actually achieve their dreams? Because these are probably, like, if you put real life stories, these are immigrants who came to Canada as doctors, but they just need $5,000 to be able to do accreditation to get their credentials and get a doctor job in Canada. But because of the cost of living, because of the cost of credit, sometimes you don't even have access to that. They now just end up being an Uber driver. And that's the reality most people are experiencing in Canada. So I think it's a massive problem that's really leading to affordability crisis, but it's also from a national scope, it's really leading to productivity because that gap is not being filled. And credit at the end of the day is just a tool that enables people to achieve their dreams. And if you don't provide the right access, you don't provide the right cost and infrastructure to support people, then we're all doomed as a nation. And that's the problem that we wanted to be able to solve.
Absolutely. And you made a great point around it being that the people who have less end up paying more. And so we see systems that are making the rich richer. And also that credit is supposed to be a tool, but how it's structured currently is a tool that's not really serving, especially underbanked and underserved Canadians. So you guys come on scene and you decide what is available is not working. We need a new model. A model that we've seen work in our countries, like rotating savings circles, and you decide that this is the tool that you're going to use towards the mission. So when that came about, why did you see rotating savings circles specifically as the tool for financial wellness, especially within communities that are racialized and marginalized? And maybe we start from the beginning to describe and define for people that might be hearing this for the first time, what is a rotating savings circle?
It leads also to your first question when you asked, like, how did we all get together? Because I think it'd be remiss to not mention Daniel. How do you say his last name? Sorry.
Ohebu, yeah.
Ohebu, who was one of our early also co-founders, and he went on to actually form ASDA, Atlantic Student Development Agency, focusing on specifically like addressing the needs of international students because they're highly educated, highly knowledgeable individuals who are like the kind of, you migrate with the hopes and dreams of your community to come and study here. And I think he went on to really focus on how can he support them to live better lives in Canada. And I think Woveo was almost that was an extension of Woveo with our impact and our desire to make sure that credit is accessible to these communities and these members. So when it lends into that, I think that question of what we're seeing or how we're like, I guess when we try and relate it to the traditional, do you mind repeating the question? I'm sorry, I got sidetracked there. I wasn't in the Daniel thing.
So I think what you're going on to say, James, is around how we're seeing rotating savings circles as a tool for financial wellness within communities, particularly.
Yes. Yes. And so actually the reason I bring up Daniel and how he was, I think, a binding factor for us coming together is when we started Woveo, when we couldn't access capital, we couldn't access credit, a lot of the feedback we were getting was like, this doesn't make sense. We actually used the rotating system to fundraise as a company. And that fundamentally allowed us to bootstrap and get those first incremental like steps forward to like show that this is possible. So I remember us sitting down and saying, every paycheck, we're taking some money out, you have to be consistent, and the first 2 weeks this will go towards our marketing, or it'll go towards product development, it'll go towards maybe getting a little bit of a model going on, MVP. Like in the end, some of those decisions ended up like helping us grow and learn, and I think that they also expose us to different like talents, like Sergio being able to come in and say that, okay, this is what it means to have a technology product. Maryheth being able to say, this is what a product should be, and this is what the expectations of what a globally globally accessible product might be when we're trying to be this ambitious. They set the standard of what that should look like. So
Amazing.
community essentially is the foundation of everything we do at
that you
Woveo.
do.
It's how do we collaborate as a group, and where ROSCAs are concerned, what you're doing is turning that community into a financial resource. Just really as a group agreeing that, okay, on a frequency, we want to put money towards a specific goal. How do we fundraise for that? And ROSCAs just end up being the avenue that we kind of fell on because of our cultural kind of context. Of how it works.
Absolutely.
And end up being very rewarding at the end, because it ends up allowing for both goals to be met, in the sense of the goals of the community, goals of the individual, but also the goals of now the broader society.
Yeah, but I can also add, so rotating savings, simply put, it's a form of community banking, whereby groups, communities, all the way from friends and family to large groups, leverage their own savings as credit facilities, right? So you can have 10 individuals, they each put an equal amount of $100, let's say, and they have a total of $1,000, and that amount is used by each individual on a rotational basis. So like this month I get that lump sum first, and then next month the other person gets it second, and then that goes all the way through. And the key benefit there is, one, it's unlimited access, right? There are no boundaries. It's just the community coming together. So anyone part of that group, core group, can be able to access those services. And then more importantly, it's interest free, right? There are no interest fees involved because it's your money at the end of the day. So you're using that facility to be able to do that. And what's really interesting about rotating savings system, which for us we saw as a market opportunity, was really this is a system that is used by almost 2 billion people globally, right? And then when these immigrants and new communities were coming to Canada, they were using these systems informally because there was no infrastructure. So sometimes you'd hear stories of like, okay, people are using, let's say, WhatsApp and e-transfers to be able to facilitate those transactions. And then if I get a payout of $10,000, let's say, and I go to the bank to deposit that because I'm doing it in cash or different other different payment methods, the bank will reject it due to compliance issues, right? Because they didn't see the flow of funds. They didn't see how that money came to be. And especially if you're someone coming from an underserved community, sometimes it's just kind of like you're going to be recognized as suspicious, right? So it was, how can you be able to build an infrastructure that connects communities and then provide transparency between the community itself as well as our mainstream financial ecosystem, and actually be that on-ramp into the mainstream financial ecosystem so that people can actually leverage their resources in a way that's more convenient, but it builds on top of that to be able to achieve their goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I'm hearing is something that we've already shared a few times already, which is essentially this is something that's used globally, right? Between the 5 of us, there's about 5 countries in which this system is used, but this is only a small fraction where we've seen it used informally. But James and I were also talking about like informal to who, right? Who decides what's informal and what's formal. And so these systems are working, but there just isn't like a more structured way to do it, especially for folks that are moving to Canada and are familiar with the system. So this is what you set out to build. But I also love hearing, Nishal always says, eat our own dog food. Something like that. So also, I love hearing that as young entrepreneurs with hunger to kind of build a solution for the community, you used your own solution to fundraise at the beginning, right, to raise capital. So that's very exciting to hear. And it also goes to show the resourcefulness of the team, but also the passion for delivering this solution. But I want to hear more about the challenges, especially at the very early beginning of building this. What are some of the challenges that you faced? I imagine capital is one of them, but I specifically want to hear from like the product and the tech team when building out this infrastructure, because this is something that hasn't really been done before. You're doing it in a very innovative way. So what are some of the challenges that you faced?
So I can start with the tech side. So I think for me, and I guess for every technology company, the root or the basis is the most challenging part. Like you really need to have a good basis to then build on top of it. And I see 3 different items. So the first one, it's integrations. So integration with third-party vendors. We actually started with one. I don't want to mention the name, but it was a terrible solution. It was the only one that we had at that point, and we need to make the back end and the front end work with what we have. but it was definitely not a good integration. So that's one. Picking your partners and your third-party vendors, it's really important. We moved to another one. It's working, and we actually are moving again to a different solution. But I guess integration is one. Then scalability, making sure that your users and your transactions are not going to collapse. You need to ensure that that companion all the time. So everything should be on place for your users, your transactions to work, basically. And I think the last one, and probably the most important one in a fintech, it's security. You need to make sure that your data is not compromised, and it's not going to be compromised. And if so, what are your tools that you're going to follow to actually create a plan and follow that plan? We're in the middle of SOC 2 compliance as well. So in that process, we realized there are a few things that we need to consider for not just for technology, but for policies and for product and for financials. So I think those are mainly the three items that I consider the most important in the tech side.
Yeah, those are really good ones. And I think just great advice for any entrepreneur in general, because I know a lot of the people that are going to be watching are entrepreneurs and founders that are building stuff themselves. So I hear three things that you want to consider from very early on is pivoting when something is not working. I always say fail fast, fail forward. So the sooner you can execute and try out if something works, the sooner you can know if it doesn't work, so you can pivot. The second one is always thinking big picture. How do we scale from serving a community of 100 people to a community of thousands of people like we have on our platform, all the while keeping everything secure, especially because we're dealing with people's money. And this rotating saving circle already has a reputation in some parts around trust and security, which I'll get to a little bit later. But I want to hear from you, Maryheth.
Okay, there are a couple of things I think it's really important. First is the team. So when you start a company, you start looking outside, trying to get third-party companies to solve for the product, for the marketing, for everything else. And I think that was one of the early mistakes or challenges, putting our product in other people's hands. Because for them, that's the job, and that's done, and that's it. But for us, this was our baby, and we needed to start right from the beginning, taking care about every little detail. So I think that's something that you should be really careful about. It's people that are on your team, how you're organizing your company and the power, where are you putting your oats? So definitely it's been like a couple of years working together, and it's not about the title, but it's about that you have the willingness to do whatever it takes to put that product in the next phase, next level. That's one of the challenges. And the second one is don't wait until your product is perfect. It's not going to be perfect ever. So that was for me a big learning process, because they really wanted no, there's something else. We need to finish that last part. Put it outside, put it on the market, put it on the people's hands, let them explore, let them try it out, and they will go back to you and say, hey, you can fix that, you can do that, blah blah blah. Like remove that layer of being the owner of something, like, oh, you're the one that knows everything about the product, you know how to do it better. You don't you don't have all the answers. So let's put it outside, let's try it out, and it will evolve itself. So yeah, don't wait to be perfect.
To be perfect, yeah. That's such great advice. Even for me as a founder, I'm just sitting here and thinking of other things that are like in my back burner that I haven't executed on because I'm waiting for it to be perfect, and how that delays everything. But beyond that, the solution that we're building is a community solution. So it's not a solution that we can build by ourselves. It's something that we have to put out there sooner rather than later, and let the community kind of tell us what they need, because it's for the community and it is by the community. So they're part of the product team by extension, and that's very important. And so with every little detail and every little task that each one of us is doing is all aimed towards how do we make sure we're maximizing the impact that we're having on the community. So I want to segue into some of the proudest moments and even success stories and impacts that you've seen from this rotating saving circles and the folks that are using Woveo. I know James and I, with the previous episode, we talked about a couple of them, the War Women's Network, and also the Nigerian Moms in Ontario. But I want to hear from you guys. What are some success stories? How are you seeing the impact of this baby that you've been raising for the past few years?
Yeah, no, success stories are actually quite interesting. So I think one of my favorite ones is actually an international student called Victor. And this was something that happens to a lot of international students, whereby your financial situation back home changes, because that's your main source of income, if you could say. And if you're not able to pay your tuition fees, then you are not able to get your work permit. So that means you have to go back home. Really, so like everything that you've invested just crashes down at that moment. So he was in a similar situation, and at that point, it was how can we be able to help him get access to credit? No bank would lend him because he's an international student. He doesn't have any credit history. But through Woveo, we're able to leverage kind of like his reputation on the platform, like the reputation of like, hey, this is a trusted member. This is someone who pays his obligations on time. And we made a referral to our credit union partner to be able to help him get access to credit. And for me, what I'm most proud of is the access of, I think it was $15,000 that he was able to get to, but then it's more the cost that he actually was able to get this credit at, because I think it was 6% interest fees. So like for us, that's the dream. Like, how can we be able to highlight people's reliability as well as reputations to be able to show to our financial partners, financial institutions, so that they can be able to extend credit to these people to actually be able to access those credit services that they need to actually achieve their dreams. So Victor was able to access that. He graduated, sent us a picture. I'm like, hey guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. I was able to graduate. And then that's actually enabling someone to achieve their dreams. So if you can be able to look at that case study and actually like be able to scale that impact, I think this is a game changer. I think you're actually like being able to rewrite systems, being able to empower demographics that were not empowered before. And I think that's kind of like one of the biggest highlighting success stories.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something very important around rewriting systems, because as innovative as Woveo is, we're not here to kind of build something from scratch in a sense. We're leveraging what are the systems that already exist and being that bridge. And like you mentioned, James, the partner between the private and the public, partner between the financial institutions that exist, whether that's credit unions and the public and the communities that we serve, by creating solutions that are very tailored and localized to them. And Victor is one example of that. But I'm going to jump again, maybe back to Sergio or Maryheth, because you might have the best answer for this next question. Because you mentioned, Sergio, earlier around like the SOC 2 compliance and all the security measures that you have to put in place when building an institution like Woveo, and also when just dealing with people's money in a system that's very based on trust. So can you elaborate on some specific features of Woveo that make it secure and a reliable platform for people to use for the rotating savings circles?
So I think this question also relates to product. We always work together, product and tech. And probably one of the features that I consider the most innovative ones, it's how we can secure a group to be successful even when there is someone who wants to get out or there is a default in the process. So we came with this idea, or Maryheth came with this idea of having a bot, basically, that can jump in, can take that responsibility of the user that went out. And that's, of course, part of the product side, and also there is a tech side on that process. And making sure that the payments are going to go through, that all the different transactions are going to happen on time, and making sure that everything is gonna be okay, even when there is someone or more than one user that they don't want to belong to that group anymore. So I think that's a good one. We are ensuring that the people we're respecting the transactions and the lively behavior of the group, while maintaining that responsibility from both product and tech. think that's one of the greatest ones.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important one because that's the biggest challenge with the traditional way that we do the rotating savings circle. Sometimes people get paid and just disappear, and the group is left at risk. I'm like, okay, now where am I going to get my money back from? So we're saying that we're shifting the liability from the group to Woveo by the board, through the board that steps in to make sure the group's funding is never at risk. And then what happens to the person then that defaulted or scammed essentially?
Because I do have a follow-up question that I'd like to pass to Maryheth because we've been dealing with it recently. But I know from the Woveo side, we always look at someone who defaults from that community perspective first. And that's really one strong foundation of it, in the sense that we understand that this audience and our community that Woveo serves are financially excluded. So that starting on that basis, we have that thesis in our mind that there's a better way to deliver financial services to you in a way that is both affordable but conducive to the community. So let's say you default or miss a payment, we kind of want to categorize it by, is it because of financial challenges because of healthcare? Have you lost your job or employment? Or are you a supporting member of your, let's say, the breadwinner of your family or community sector, in which case there may be obligations beyond yourself that you have to deal with in case of emergency. And within the scope of those categories and that understanding, we can really adjust our, let's say community collections process to really facilitate not only us as a company being able to maintain our mandate of being an actual business and operating, but bringing in that cultural community side of things, of ensuring the nurturing aspect of financial literacy and nurturing behavior for that progression and graduation to broader financial services. The reason I jumped in there is because we're dealing with a system that was once extremely traditional, extremely flexible, and extremely adjustable. Like, there was so much customization that you could do as a community. But when you're coming into the realm of technology, you have to almost, there has to be certain points of certainty or points of, I'd say, how would you consistency? And the question was to throw to Maryheth for jumping in there is what that journey has been like from something that was so community, so customizable, so flexible, to now building a product that works within a system, like it's a financial services industry.
More
kind
systemized.
Of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, we're working on a system that needs rules, but we want them to be flexible enough to. There is one thing that is important. There is one approach, and it's we don't want anybody to be left behind. We don't see. We can imagine a member that cannot fit in our system. We don't want them just because of the missed payment to be left out of the system, kicked out of the app, and that's it for them. No, we want to get them back. We want them to have good behaviors on the platform, learn good savings skills, and build all those to help the community, to improve the financial wellness for everybody. So I think that's what differentiates us from traditional banks. Is that if you're not good enough, like, we're going to close your account and that's it.
Yeah.
But we don't want that. So there is a full set of rules that we have. One for the system, just to ensure everybody has the peace of mind that the system is doing its part to make it sure that everybody contributes on time and get the chance to be on, like, the good side of the app. But if for some reason a missed payment happens, we need to take a human approach. So there is always human first. We need to understand what's happening, what's your context, what we can do to ensure that this is not a burden for you. Because it's really easy for a member to also misuse this kind of systems. And that's on us to learn them to use it right. So what we are doing and what we are building towards, it's technology solutions that could be AI, leverage alternative data to understand their behavior. So if we see that you're taking the wrong decisions over and over, we're going to say, hey, we can help you. Like, let's stop, avoid this debt. Let's try another way. And let's rebuild your skills to make sure that you are good and you are a good piece for this community. Because we are leverage not just community power, but how you can feed your own financial world into different other goals. There is no big or small goal for us. Like even if you're saving for your travel, for buy a car, or for your down payment, everything's worth it. So what we're just trying to do is let's observe what's happening here. Like, how do you interact with other members? What's the health of your community, of your groups, and your financial health, and build. And I'm just going a bit on the future, but it's the Woveo ranking system. It's let's create a credit score that it's not just about if you paid on time or not. Let's talk about what are your interactions on the system. What are you doing also to contribute on that financial sector? It's not always about using an X% of your debt, like credit card.
Yeah.
And that's first. That's the most important thing is how we can approach financial and money, not just about rules and a really square thing that you need to do blah blah blah. You need to have a job. You need to have a credit card. You need to have a checking account and all those things. But let's go back to the paper and pencil when you were doing your. Taking your notes of, I have to pay this thing and I have to pay this other. Let's put on a system that can take all those little things and hints that you're doing and profile users in a more human way that is realistic, and it's measuring people that it's outside of a system. There is no place for them in the system. So let's build a system that it's open for everybody. And it doesn't mean you need to graduate to the traditional system. You can use both. You can use both. You don't need to decide.
Yeah, no, that's very beautiful. Because when we talk a lot about equity, inclusion, exclusion, and all of these buzzwords, a lot of what comes up is sometimes we have to dismantle systems to be able to include communities that have been otherwise excluded. And that works in some instances, but it also takes a lot of, it takes decades in the making, right, to break down certain systemic barriers. But there's also an alternative, which is how about we build something altogether that caters to these communities that are excluded, and we include them, and we have a system that is more built alongside the communities and the intersectionalities and positionalities and realities really of the communities that we're serving. That's very important. I like the collections piece. So we call it community collections, right? So I like, just as a user myself, I like to know that my money would be safe if I'm part of a community and someone defaults, right? Yes. But I also find so much joy in knowing that someone is chasing after them so that they don't do that to another community.
Yes, indeed.
But the human side of me, also knowing how it's been done with the payday loans and how that has really ruined people's lives, right? You can get a loan to even, buy a house, buy a car because you missed a payment 1 year, one time 7 years ago, and it's still on your reports as a bankruptcy or consumer proposal, like all of those things. So I like the human aspect around community. But you reminded me of a story. When I was growing up, I was a bit of a problem child, which probably not a surprise to many people. But I had debt. I was probably 9 years old. I had debt because I was trying to get, we call it puff puff. Puff puff, it's just like a pastry, right? Which they used to sell in the streets of Lusaka where I grew up. And every time when going to school, because my mom didn't make those for me for some reason, I would borrow from the lady at the street. I was like, I'll pay you back. So I got in so much debt, not so much debt back then, like a 10 kwacha, right? Just from borrowing that over and over again. And then the lady was like, you need to pay me back. And I didn't have the money because I was obviously 9 years old. So she went to tell my mom about it. Right. And I think of the community collection process, because you talked about sitting down with them and understanding, why did you do that? Right. And then trying to help with the repayment. And that's exactly what would happen back home. My mom and my older sisters would sit down with me after they beat me up a little bit, would sit down with me and say, why did you do that? Why didn't you tell us that you needed help? What can we do to make sure that next time you don't go to that lady to borrow? Should we be making more, pastries at home so you have some to take? So that more collective and communal approach approach is something that's missing in the financial institutions. And it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be that you can be collective and communal or you can be a business. You're showing us that you can have both social impact and for profit, right? And that's very important to kind of have in the system. John, I know you had something to add on, so I rambled on for a bit.
No, that was good. One thing I wanted to also add was just around kind of like the favorite features. I like the word solutions. So we talked about like the insurance piece, protecting groups and communities, but then the other one actually is the cash advance that we have. Because if you look at a rotating saving system, one of the challenges is what happens when two members have a financial need at the same time, right? That's when you have like people now looking for an alternative solution to be able to bridge that gap. And then what that does is, like, let's say I'm participating in a group, I can be able to get access to my future payout early, part of it early, and then I can be able to solve an emergency. And then that comes into solving things such as using a payday loan, right? A payday loan is typically $200 to $1,500. It's a short-term credit product, but it gets people into very high interest debt, right? But then this now, it's interest free. You're able to actually utilize your future payout as a collateral to be able to access interest free cash advance. So I think that's really, really interesting, just in terms of how it can be able to help people mitigate those expenses. Because one big thing, even since day one, the question that we've always asked is, why save with a bank that you can't borrow from?
I've had.
Right? That's kind of like the main question, the main thesis, because you're just contributing your savings to a bank, and then the bank lends to other people, but then you're financially excluded, whereby you have a system that actually your savings are working for you. So it's an alternative system that actually enables you to be able to do that. And then once you can be able to also borrow on top of it, I think it creates like a whole financial ecosystem around short-term credits.
That's beautiful. And you actually segue perfectly into my next and last question as we wrap up. Woveo 3.0. I've heard this a lot, and I want to hear about what solutions you have in store for our communities, our users, our customers. What is Woveo 3.0? What should we be looking forward to on the Woveo platform?
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
I was looking.
Woveo 3.0, it's we're revamping the whole app. So everything, it's whole new design, new UX, new UI. But what we are doing this time, it's changing some roles, changing the way we are approaching these communities. And we want to be centered in a person, in the member, and their financials and how they interact with different communities. So we have different solutions ready in place. We have some AI solutions around. We have open communities, so everybody can join open groups, so you can remove the boundaries of your immediate network, but then start interacting with new people on the platform that you know that they are verified, that they have experience, that they are proven in different other groups, that they are worth it for you to stay with. And we also have a new way for you to start up and start in the groups. So you don't need an immediate network of people to start working, but you can just join a group with Woveo bots. So you can start testing out how it works, field experience just from day one on the app. And that's great because you, even if you're not aware of the ROSCA model, you'll get a taste of it with our bots. We are building a lot of automation, and that's not just because we want to put tech on that, but we want for your communities and the members to be focused on the things that matter. If you know that your community and your savings are working, you can focus on the things important, like on your studies, on the goal that you are doing, and the trip that you are dreaming of. So that's what we want to remove from all of our members, the time wasting of chasing others or making sure the money is there. No, like we got you.
Gotcha. Everything is automated, so you can relax.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
Yep.
I just feel like we just like, but yeah, I think also just to add to what Maryheth just mentioned, I think one also big piece about Woveo 3.0, it's a third layer into the vision of the company, whereby transforming community banking into community wallets, right? That's kind of like been the whole vision. And when you look at it from that vision perspective, is how do we enable whether small communities or big communities to have their own community bank? That's kind of like where we're building towards, because a community banking ecosystem it's a game changer for communities, right? In Canada, we do have credit unions, which actually enable like, okay, those members to be able to access credit service to start businesses, start different things. So how can you enable new immigrant communities coming to Canada to not have the overhead cost, also like the compliance procedures to start their own community bank, and actually leverage that as a whole way to be able to do things differently. And I think also the second thing is now we actually see those credit unions becoming our partners. Right, so now you're on Woveo, you're doing a rotating savings system, you're doing group savings, you're doing cooperative savings and credit systems. How can you now leverage your data to access bigger things that you're dreaming of, your ambitions, from mortgages to auto loans to business loans? So how can we now use that alternative data as an alternative credit score so that those credit unions can lend to you at a very affordable cost? Right, so now you have built a whole community banking infrastructure in partnerships with this over 200 credit unions. We have over $400 billion in assets to actually empower those communities. I think you're actually changing the community banking landscape, which is really, really interesting about Woveo 3.0. But yeah.
Amazing.
I don't think you
I
add-
don't know how
That's it.
from the tech side.
Yeah, no. So when you look at the product, everything. So you know that there is a front end and there is the back end, and usually the front end, what you see is what it's more important for the users, but there is a lot of work behind all of what you guys see. So just not to take the credit, but there is also there is also a new database, there is also a new API connection, there is a new architecture in the system. We are also actually writing everything from scratch. There is nothing that we are reusing. All the feedback that we are receiving, it's taken in consideration as well. SOC 2 compliance, as we mentioned before, it's part of all of this. So yeah, it's about new features, it's about a new tech behind the scenes. AI, as Maryheth mentioned, is a big piece of it. And the creator score system is also a big one. There's a new formula that we're going to start working on and see how it behaves with the members. So yeah, it's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And no, definitely, and shout out to the team. We have beautiful team that it's been like some of them since day one, and they're our best users. They're eager to give it a try. It's like, oh, I don't like that button. You should put it. And it's like, oh wow, like I love the people that we work with. They're as excited with the product. They're looking forward to try it out. So yeah, no, definitely it's work from like a lot of faces. We're a small team yet, but I think our souls are like really big.
Yes. It's like you because you say like this is your baby, so you found like the perfect babysitters for your baby, the ones that love the baby and very passionate, that get along with the baby, and that's the best you can have for any founder, any startup.
I was gonna add, so even like if you're using the baby context of someone, like they're telling you how you should raise your baby sometimes because they're coming in, it's like, okay, maybe you should try this a bit different. And it's because almost I think the highest standard is almost also internally with the team, especially for the product. And I think Woveo 3.0 will be the perfect interpretation of it, because at one level it's really giving communities that tool that they can almost now really play with, and especially around use cases. Because in the past, what we were doing was we were building it, going for feedback. Okay, what do you think? How should we move things? And consistently, we were finding that as communities, there are priorities that they have. It's usually healthcare, employment, and then access to credit, which comes along with entrepreneurship and how do you actually support the community. But then now what we're seeing is it's blossoming from dealing with problems to now developing solutions. And I think Woveo point, like the third version now will actually be that interpretation of that, because it's taking, I think, our experiences, our shared passion for this work and actually converting it into a product. And we've actually like, you said you're proud of this baby. How it's growing up, and this you can see all the stakeholders coming into it
together,
as well. And
let me see if I can sum it up, because I really love this baby analogy. So four of you come and you have this baby Woveo, very passionate about this baby, and you know that this baby is going to be the Messiah almost. Okay, it's going to change the world. It's going to create so much impact. You put so much work into it. But you're only 4 people, right? Every baby needs, like, we're raised by a village. So every baby needs the right babysitters, the right aunties, the right sisters. So you find the perfect team, the perfect family, really, to raise this baby with you, and they're just as passionate about the baby. They spend more time with the baby than you, and they tell you, like, the baby's misbehaving, we gotta work on this so that the baby's a better member of society. And every time you send the baby out to society, to the community, for the community to interact with the baby, to make sure that the work that you're pouring into the baby is actually being seen by the community and get the feedback from the community. And this is the baby Woveo scenario. I love that. But I want to say one last thing too around something Sergio mentioned on everything that's happening in the background with the tech. I'm not tech person, so the tech stack, the APIs, the databases, whatever it is that's happening, from my end as a user, all I'm hearing is, one, I'm being heard, that you are creating features and solutions that are a reflection of what I'm communicating to you as a user that I need. And that's very important, right? Two, I'm hearing that there's someone working tirelessly in the background to make sure that my life is made easier, right? The user experience, everything that I'm seeing on the platform, it's made easier. There's automations of how the funds are flowing. I know you showed me the whole flow of funds, Maryheth, a few months ago, that everything is made easier and that my money is safe and working for me, but also that I am included in a system that's otherwise excluding me, that someone is thinking to include me in a system that's otherwise excluding me, and that is very important. So thank you. Thank you for sharing the work you do. Thank you for doing the work that you do. I know I echo a lot of what the audience will have to say around Woveo as a product, but also around you guys as a team, because I've worked with you guys for a few months now, so thank you. We've shared a lot about what we're doing for the community, but we are a community, so I am because you are. So as much as we're doing this work, we can't do it without the community. So do we have any asks for the community at this point?
Yes, we do. I think the biggest ask is for us, all the work that we do, everything that we're building for the communities in Canada. So our biggest ask will be to try it out. It's a solution that we've built for you, and we want you to be part of that journey. We can't do this without your feedback, without your input. We believe in the power of community. I believe in, like, the Nelson Mandela, you know, how you call it, the Ubuntu spirit, of just kind of like, you know, I am because we are. So we need to be able to do it together. So sign up, try it out, provide feedback. We are a very accessible team. If you want to be able to have conversations, whether it's the founders, the CEO, the CTO, we are all accessible. We're just regular people and want to be able to engage with you. So really engage with us. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And on that note, I will wrap it up. And back to our audience, thank you for joining us for today's episode. It's honestly been my favorite episode yet, connecting with the founding team, and I hope it has been yours. And I imagine you have so many questions around what's being built here, around the products and the features that they've shared are coming on the pipeline. So if you have any questions, as always, make sure you comment below and make sure to like and subscribe, because we have so many more exciting episodes in store for you. And I wish you a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you're calling from. And yeah, bye-bye.